What's up, everyone? My name's Sean O'Connell. I'm the deputy editor at CBR, in charge of comic books and superheroes. And I kind of teased this on social media that I wanted to try and do something. So I'm giving it a shot. What's going on? This is a live stream. Because if you are paying any bit of attention at all, you know that this month is one of the biggest months in the history of the comic book superhero film genre, without an exaggeration. And I do a lot of writing for CBR, and I've been covering the comic book industry for better part of 20 some odd years now. And there's a chance some of you guys might know me from work I did at Cinema Blend, and I'm currently doing at CBR. Maybe you know some of the books that I wrote. I wrote a book about the Snyder Cut. I wrote a book about Spider-Man. And I might be working on some other books as well too, which I will explain to you guys over the course of me doing this for a little while. But what I wanted to do was just have a forum. I wanted to have a place where I could reach out and talk to you guys and give you guys a platform, listen to some of the things that you wanted to hear about, and dig into some of the big topics that were going on. And maybe this is something that I end up doing on a weekly basis. I could see possibly doing something like this on a Monday, and then maybe ramping up on Friday to get ready for the weekend. Maybe talk ahead to things that are going on at the beginning of the week, but just to give you guys something to listen to. Just some analysis of what's going on in the comic book industry, and some of the major things that have been going on. So who am I and why am I doing this? Well, like I said, I've been covering the film industry for several decades. I used to work for Cinema Blend. I currently work for CBR. I ran a podcast over at Cinema Blend called the Real Blend Podcast. And I ran it with two of my really close friends, Jake Hamilton and Kevin McCarthy, who are very active in the junket circuit. And they posted recently their interviews with the Superman cast, which you guys need to check out. And if you want to see my interviews with James Gunn, and then the three main leads from Superman, David Cornswet, Nicholas Hoult, and Rachel Brosnahan, you can find them on CBR's YouTube channel as well too. But I jumped over to CBR after leaving Cinema Blend, and as a result of that, our podcast, the Real Blend Podcast, had to go away. That was a show that Cinema Blend owned, and also just due to our lives being pretty difficult, we knew it was time for us to sort of move on and go in a different direction and check out some of the other things that were going to be happening in our lives. You're going to be hearing some announcements from myself and some other announcements from the boys, which I will leave up to them. Some of you guys, if you follow Kevin on social media, you know that he moved out to Los Angeles and is grinding out there, making some exciting things happen for him. I'm super proud of him, but he'll have some big announcements as well too coming soon. And we're all kind of finding our groove. But what I missed is having a place every week that I could sit down and just talk to you guys about things that are going on in the movie world, and specifically things that are going on in the comic book world. And I thought with July coming around and us ramping up to the release of arguably two of the most important comic book movies that were ever going to happen, that this would be a good time for me to start this live stream, test it out, see how it works on my YouTube channel, and I don't know, just interact with you guys. Because if you, unless you're living underneath a rock, you guys know that this is the week that Superman comes out. And so I wanted to start by talking about Superman and start by talking about a few of the major things that are going on with regards to that film. Now, I can't obviously get into spoilers because it is Monday right now, Monday at 4:04 p.m. And we have until midnight tonight when the embargo, so Superman has two different embargoes going on with it. It has the reaction embargo, which is loosely defined, but it basically just means, we can go on social media and we can talk about whether we liked it or didn't like it without getting into specifics. That takes place tonight at 9 p.m. Pacific and midnight Eastern. So if you're one of those people who on social media, you want to avoid anything and everything with regards to the reaction to a film, Superman, then you're going to want to start silencing all the key terms on social media tonight, beginning at midnight. But I have locked in my social media review. It is going to go live at midnight. And then tomorrow, on Tuesday, the review embargo for it, which means longer pieces are out there. They're going to start going at noon PST and 3 p.m. Eastern. So maybe by the time you guys have listened to this, if you're finding it after the fact, the embargoes will be broken and people will be running some stuff over the weekend. Obviously, a few people broke embargo, and they talked about the fact that it was by accident. Oh, my editor at my outlet mistakenly ran my review, which, you know, I guess sure happens. And then once one person does it, in particular, this one happened to be the Daily Beast. Then other people start to drop some of the trades, start to flirt with the idea that they're going to post their reviews. There was a really sneaky reaction to I want to say that it was Variety. Maybe I shouldn't say, just in case it wasn't, but I thought it was Variety who posted a review of the John Cena movie, the John Cena Idris Elba movie. And in their review for that one, kind of said like, oh, this movie's better than Superman, which, you know, as a result of that, was able to sort of comment about Superman, which is unfair. But you know, that's the sneaky way around that. So I can't give you my reaction just yet. But just know that if you follow me on social media, as of midnight tonight, my reaction will post. What I would like to do, and also I just want to let you guys know that if you are watching, hello, I see some people are watching, and thank you very much for that. There's a chat. So if you want to put some message in the chat throughout the course of this stream, which I'm probably going to try to go for like an hour or so, throughout the course of this stream, if you guys want to leave me a message in the chat or ask a question or something, I can try to answer some questions about anything, superhero stuff that's going on, film stuff that's going on, anything that you guys want to get into. Excuse me one second. So what I do want to do, and I don't think this is violating anything, is I'd like to guess the Rotten Tomatoes score for James Gunn's Superman. And this in no way reflects on how I feel about the movie. Like I said, my social media reaction is locked. Nothing can change. I don't even know how to change something that's been scheduled on social media anyway. I'm not that tech savvy. But my guess, I'm going to lock in my guess as of Monday at 4:07 p.m. before anything drops. I'm going to guess that Superman is going to clock in around 72% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. And I'll explain why. I'll explain why I think that. I just think that that this is the kind of film, and if you've been paying attention to social media at all over the past couple of weeks, specifically months, more realistically, this is the kind of film that people have made up their minds on. They've dug their heels in. There are people who, obviously, there are people who are going to go into it with an open mind, and they're going to be, wanting it to experience the movie as the movie is. But there are factions out there that have their blades sharpened for James Gunn's Superman. They may or may not be Zack Snyder fans. Possibly. It does seem like there's a big faction. There are some people who are then going to react to the reaction, and they're going to pump up the number of the score, even critics necessarily, and they're going to swing the needle in the other direction, which leads me to believe that we're not going to get an accurate reading about how people legitimately feel about this movie one way or the other. I also do just think that amongst the critical community, and again, I haven't spoken to very many people about their reactions to this film. I'm just as curious about how the reviews are going to land when they drop when the big embargo lifts. But I do think that outside of somebody like me, who is obviously the deputy editor of comics and superheroes for a major site like CBR, who, as you can see, the office behind me is a bizarro explosion of all things pop culture and comic book nostalgia. I have the dang Wolverine popcorn bucket over my shoulder, so I'm in the tank. But I can be impartial, and I can tell you that one of the comic book movies doesn't work or isn't as interesting as I wanted it to be. Captain America: Brave New World, that came out earlier this year, it's fine. Thunderbolts, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Good, better than I thought it was going to be. Not quite the top tier MCU stuff, but fine. But I'm still going into these movies with a bit of anticipation, and believe me, we'll get to Fantastic Four in a second. But I do think that there's a level in the critical community that doesn't want comic book movies anymore. They're done with the trend. They're over the fad. They would like to see comic book movies, superhero movies, go the way of the Western. Um, and it definitely, there is an issue going on in the production cycle as well too, where this comic book superhero movies are heading in that direction. There's going to be a dearth of films coming out in a little bit, and a topic we'll touch on in a second, where the combination of the COVID protocols and everything that's shut down the industry due to the COVID era, and then of course the labor strikes that followed behind it, meant that the production cycle has been completely screwed up, and I'm not sure, we're still 18 months to 2 years away from that being back to normal. But I just think overall interest is never going to be in the critical community as high as it was when we were, let's say, coming to the end of the Marvel phase, which led into Infinity War and Endgame. And that's just going to be the reality of it. You're never going to really swing around, no matter what you put out. The critics who are more looking forward to the new Ari Aster, or the next Greta Gerwig, they would rather see something like that in theaters than see another interpretation of Superman. So I think you have to take all of those opinions with a grain of salt. And it's going to be rare that a blockbuster appeals to the larger critical community in the way that like a Top Gun Maverick or something like that, which just, covered most of the bases, ticked all the boxes, did whatever you wanted it to be. And, who knows? Maybe Superman will be that movie. I'm not quite sure. But if I were to put a guess on it, I'm going to say it's in 72. And if you had to give me, I'll take the over. If you had to ask me, I would take the over on that one, but I'm putting it at 72. Now, later this month, we're going to get Marvel's next film, The Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four comes out on July 25th. It's directed by Matt Shakman. Originally was supposed to be directed by John Watts. He talked about the fact that the burnout from producing the Spider-Man No Way Home, and specifically producing Spider-Man No Way Home under the auspices of the COVID protocol, was just too much for him to come off of that and dive into a Fantastic Four movie and make it the way that he wanted it to be. And so it goes to Matt Shakman to take over and launch this new era of this team for the MCU. And it goes without saying that this is going to be a major film for Marvel Studios. And let me start by saying that it's really silly that, a year ago, Deadpool and Wolverine was $1 billion hit for Marvel. We're talking about, it hasn't been a decade since Marvel had a major win. However, they could use a PR boost for the Fantastic Four. Like I've kind of circled this one. I've got my eyes on the Fantastic Four because I think it's really important for Marvel in this sense. They need to put forth the vision to the fans, especially the casual fans, that they have a plan and that they're heading in the right direction. They've had a couple of, they're not misfires. I'm not going to call Captain America: Brave New World or Thunderbolts a misfire, because I think that they were perfectly fine. And I actually thought Thunderbolts was really good. I liked it a lot as a ensemble. I thought it was a great introduction to a brand new team. I think they're going to be important in the grand scheme of the bigger picture. I thought the cast was fantastic. I like Lewis Pullman a lot as Sentry. I think Florence Pugh is fantastic. She is an actress that the MCU can lean on a ton moving forward. It's time, though, for Marvel to show that they are building towards something. And let's talk a little bit about the hand that they were dealt, because I get that they're playing from behind to a certain extent because of the Kang issue. Jonathan Majors was supposed to be Kang, right? Like he was going to be the big bad of this phase. You all know what happened. Legal troubles led to him being fired by Marvel Studios. But creatively, this is the point that I'm concerned about, is creatively, Marvel then had to pivot hard away from Kang, who was going to be the driving force, like I said, of these next few movies, and figure out a way for them to bring in now Doctor Doom. And we know it's Downey Jr. We know that Avengers: The Kang Dynasty has shifted over to Avengers: Doomsday, and then that has even been delayed from a May opening in 2026 to July of 2026. That put a lot of attention on Fantastic Four, which is the third and final movie to be coming out in 2026. It's introducing a brand new team. It's almost like you're jumping right to the Avengers at the end of phase one. So you're not getting a ramp up. You're not being able to introduce these characters. You're just hitting the ground running. And the way that they're doing that is by setting it up in an alternate Earth, right? We're going to this retro 1960s fitted world. We're going to meet the team as they've already been formed. We don't have to do the origin story of the Fantastic Four, which is fine because we've been through it in multiple other franchises. A terrific cast across the board: Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby. It looks to be great. Last year, I got a chance to go to the set. If you follow me on social media, there's a chance you saw some of my pictures that I posted from it. And my big takeaway from it is that Marvel was thinking big. They were going big. I also recognize, even as a fan, that Marvel has been relying a little bit too heavily on CGI, on green screens. And again, I will chalk this up to, necessity, COVID and expenses and ways to film this. Like if I go back and rewatch Spider-Man: No Way Home, a movie that I adore, and a movie that I will, oh, it's right over my shoulder, a movie that I will give a ton of credit for because it brought together all three Spider-Men for the first time in an adventure, and it's unforgettable. I'll never forget where I was the first time I got a chance to see it. To see Andrew Garfield come back, to see Toby come back, and to not just make them cameos, as John Watts talked about recently, but to make them integral to the action that took place in the third act. That was phenomenal. Like, kid me never thought he would ever get a chance to see that happen on the big screen, and it was unbelievable. But I go back and rewatch that movie with my critical eye turned up a little bit. Are there scenes that look a little wonky because of the obvious, we shot this on a soundstage in Atlanta? Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course. Like, you see that stuff. One of the movies that's circled as the boy, Marvel really went downhill after this one, was Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which can look like a CGI CF. It looks like a video game in a lot of instances. Now, I kind of like the sci-fi elements of it. I think it's a pretty good story. I like Paul Rudd in the lead. But yeah, I get it. If you're knocking Marvel and you're saying things were better in phase one, phase two, in a movie like Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and trying to compare something that's like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which largely takes place in the quantum realm. Okay, yeah, I get it. It looks totally different. But on the set of the Fantastic Four First Steps, I got to walk along a physical recreation of Ben Grimm's neighborhood in New York City, Yancey Street. It is the same street that is used in Deadpool and Wolverine when the two main heroes, Deadpool and Wolverine, take on the Deadpool Corps, when they have that amazing tracking shot that goes sideways and you see Deadpool and Wolverine just mowing through hundreds of Deadpools. That's the same stage or setup that they used in Fantastic Four for Yancey Street. So when you're watching First Steps later this month and you see the Thing walking down Yancey Street, just know that's where Deadpool and Wolverine were, which I think is really, really cool. We got to, as a group of journalists, go into the actual Baxter building. I wish I knew enough about technology to be able to pot the photos up right now. They're on my social media page if you want to go find them. They're on my Instagram account. Sean O'Connell 33. Search for me on Instagram. I've got photos of me in the Baxter building, sitting on the couch. I wasn't there for 7:00 family dinner, but I was there to be able to tour around. And the build was complete. It was the family kitchen. It was the living room. It was all of the bedrooms. We were in Johnny's room. We were in Sue and Reed's room. They had a crib for Franklin, which we can now talk about. That was under lock and key for a while. There was a moment where I sat on the couch holding Franklin's blanket. and no one really saw me pick it up off the couch. It was there as a prop, as like a set decoration, and I thought, I'm gonna hold Franklin's blanket while I sit on the couch in the living room of the Baxter Building for as long as they let me, because I could not believe that I was doing this. We went through the costume department and saw the Ben Grimm sized props that were being used for his wardrobe, and it cracks me up now because I see it in the footage. Him in his sweater vest, the blue hat I got to hold the blue hat. Like, he's literally, that's a physical, he's wearing a blue hat. Whereas, like, you go back and rewatch some of the making ofs for something like Avengers Endgame, and Brie Larson's hair out in outer space is CGI. Like, everything's CGI, but this is props. This is like actual replicas of really cool things. And then, of course, two other locations that we got a chance to see: the Times Square set in Manhattan, the blown out, there's a launch pad from where the Fantastic Four, in the trailers, it looks like they arrive to greet the Silver Surfer as she's going. But the storefronts that are set up are all around to make it look like 1960s retro New York. Again, not green screen, physical sets, decorated sets. And the last one that we got a chance to see was Reed's Laboratory, which is three different segments dedicated to three different types of work that he would be doing, and they're color coded. One is blue, one is red, and the last one is, I want to say, orange. God, how am I forgetting that already? But there's moments in the trailers where you see Pedro working at the giant chalkboard, and these are the sets that the Fantastic Four is going to be on. My point being, I think Marvel's investing as much as they can into this movie because they know that it needs to be a hit. They don't necessarily have an Avengers team that's populated by people who characters that people know and love. So they need to quickly introduce you to a team that they hope that you're going to embrace and move forward to. And it's all going to come down to that. It's all going to come down to the personalities, the casting, the characterization, and whether we buy into this notion of family. Which is what they're blasting forward in all of the advertisements. Family, 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 family. We're always there for 7:00 family dinner. We're going to do this as a family. We're going to stand up and protect the earth. We're going to do this together. We're a team, and Marvel needs you guys to buy in. So we're going to find out July 25th. We're going to see if everybody buys into the Fantastic Four, and if the MCU adaptation of a classic team that's been around since day one is different enough from the other versions that have been offered to us before by directors like Tim Story, or cast members that include Kate Mara and dude from Whiplash, whose name I forget, Miles Teller. Thank you very much, Miles Teller. Whether we can look past them and accept this new version of the Fantastic Four, because we got a big problem after that. Both Marvel and DC, in my opinion, have a pretty massive problem after that. And again, I just want to remind you guys, if you're listening to me and you have a question that you want to hit me up with in the chat, drop it down below. I'm just kind of rambling off the top of my head now at this point. What's the big problem? We have two massive movies that are coming in July. What kind of problem could we possibly have? Oh, wait, I have something I can put there. What's next? Well, next is a gaping hole in the production schedule and the release calendar that doesn't have any other movies that we can talk about until Supergirl lands in June of 2026. Now, that's just short of a full calendar year that we don't have any other Marvel or DC films to talk about, comic book blockbusters. So all you folks who wanted to get rid of the superhero genre, you're getting your wish for a little bit of time. You're going to get 11 months of no new comic book or superhero films to reach, unless, as speculated, Supergirl moves up and takes the May slot that was left by Avengers Doomsday when Doomsday moved to December. So Marvel specifically, after Fantastic Four, they have to wait until December of 2026 before Avengers Doomsday hits. Now, they'll have Spider-Man Brand New Day, which is arriving in July of 2026. It's a Sony movie, but also technically an MCU film. So they will have something that they can use to keep people interested in the universe as it's growing. But let's just say, theoretically, that Fantastic Four is not well received. People think it's too familiar to everything that we've seen before. The cast doesn't gel. Galactus looks like a cloud. Who knows? All the different reasons that people might want to complain, right? Then Marvel's got to sit in that for 18 months of people wondering what's next, of people asking themselves out loud, is Robert Downey Jr. coming back to the MCU going to be good enough? Is that good enough to set everything back on track? That's a long time. That's a long time. That adds extra pressure to the performance of Fantastic Four, which I don't think is fair. I don't want to put that type of pressure on an individual movie. That's not great. Like, the movie should be the movie. It should perform the way that it's meant to perform. But that's an awful long time. Now, that's not to say there isn't other Marvel content coming, and I'll get to DC in a second. Marvel is going to have on the television side, they've got Eyes of Wakanda, which is an animated series that's going to be taking place deep in the history of Wakanda as a land. It sounds like a spy thriller based on some footage that was shown at the Annecy Animation Film Festival. They have Marvel Zombies, a very niche property that, even I'm kind of on the fence of, like, do I really want to see Marvel Zombies? I don't read the Marvel Zombies comic books as they've come out. I don't really necessarily. It's like What If. Some of the episodes of What If I thought worked really well, and some of them just seem gimmicky. So, these are not properties that are really floating people's boats. Wonder Man, sure, could be good. Could be interesting. I hope. But currently, right now, with the Marvel TV shows, they are not hooking people's attention in the way that Marvel probably hopes they are. That, like, it's okay to ask, like, does anyone care about these things that are happening, about the echoes of the world, and Ironheart? Before I jump into Ironheart, let's get to DC. DC has a couple of bigger things coming. At least they have Peacemaker season 2, which I do is probably going to get a big promotional push ahead of its August release. Right now, obviously, they're focused on Superman. That's their big thing. And it should be. They want to get as many people into theaters as they can for that. But then Peacemaker season 2 is coming behind it. And it's a chance to expand the world. Like, we have some interesting plot elements that are still in the Peacemaker universe, stuff that bled over from James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. And I think we're going to get a lot of Rick Flag versus Peacemaker in this one, because he obviously blames him for the death of his son, Rick Flag Jr. But in addition to that, I went back and rewatched Peacemaker season 1 over the past couple of weeks in preparation for season 2, and I kind of forgot about the use of the pocket dimension and the stuff with Peacemaker's father, played by the great Robert Patrick. And, there are elements that I think can become bigger in the DCU, especially as you start to see someone like Rick Flag show up in Superman, of which he has a part. So now he's been in Creature Commandos, Superman, and he's a big part, from what James Gunn has said, in Peacemaker season 2. So the DCU has room to develop. They have Lanterns coming up behind it, which to me is one of the most exciting projects on the radar. Again, the log line is simply, it's True Detective with 2 lanterns, and that's phenomenal. Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, which should be great. I think Aaron Pierre is going to be a breakout star. I loved him in Rebel Ridge, and I want to see what Lanterns does. I like Creature Commandos a lot. Creature Commando season 2 is coming behind it. Again, this is animation. For some reason, casual fans kind of just bounce off of animation. It doesn't necessarily pull them in. That's why Eyes of Wakanda isn't necessarily spiking the needle. That's why Marvel Zombies isn't really spiking the needle. But we have Creature Commandos as well, too. With all of these projects, I think the mainstream audience is really asking themselves, do I care about this? And I don't know what the answer is. I think there's going to be a really, really, really long wait from Superman and the Fantastic Four coming out this month to Spider-Man Brand New Day in July of 2026. It's a long time to wait for a major comic book property to come out. I mean, Marvel's conditioned people to look for new projects in November and February, and they're not coming this year. And a lot of it's the production delays, the labor strikes, and some of it is, Disney telling Marvel, create a ton of stuff for the streaming service, and then backtracking and saying, no, don't do that. Quality control, quality over quantity. Uh, Pull back the reins, make something really, really great. And that led to the creation of Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars, which I think is a part one, part two kind of thing. Or at least like two separate stories, but that will feed into each other. But this means that we're waiting a really, really long time until those other movies come out. If you guys are listening to this and you have an opinion about whether it's good that we have that gap and that you want to wait for quality stuff, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you guys about whether you think that that's relevant or not. Because Ironheart dropped and seemed to drop to more fanfare, I think, in the second half than we necessarily saw in the first half. The first three episodes kind of came. I thought they were the weaker of the 6 episodes, and then I was really impressed with the final 3 episodes. And so I do feel like the reaction to the final 3 episodes has been stronger, and it was a little bit more of people realizing, oh, there's good Marvel content, taking place on Disney Plus, and this is a character that we're really interested in. Not only is this a character that we're interested in, but it's starting to peel back layers in a corner of the universe that we've been waiting to be explored for a really long time, which is magic and dark magic necessarily. Now, it goes without saying, if you made it this far, this is going to be a spoiler-filled conversation about Ironheart. You should have been able to see the episodes by now at this point, so I'm going to talk freely. If you guys want to punch out now, just know that we're going to get into spoilers for Ironheart. Guess who finally showed up? After being teased repeatedly in things like WandaVision, and where else was he teased? Oh, well, Agatha all along, of course, and then ended up being Aubrey Plaza playing Death instead of the Grand Mephisto finally made his presence known in the MCU and has been rumored forever, played by Sacha Baron Cohen, who I think was fantastic in the part. And beyond getting a really good performance out of him in his 2 scenes, first with Anthony Ramos and then later with Dominic Thorne, is that, yes, he's great for the part, but like now this is a really interesting wrinkle that's introduced into the MCU. And I don't think that it's a character that has been introduced that is going to fall by the wayside in a way that so many of these other characters and actors have been brought into the fold, like Russell Crowe, who, we saw in a post-credit scene and then we're probably never going to see again. I do think Sacha Baron Cohen is going to be part of a bigger storytelling arc to be told, because think of the characters that he could interact with and make for some really, really interesting, smaller scale storytelling. We ran a piece on CBR almost immediately after the fact of his introduction of how now that Mephisto is in the MCU, the title Spider-Man Brand New Day just means so much more. There is an opportunity there. And yes, a friend of mine did sort of point out that, like, oh, yeah, they kind of did Brand New Day a little bit with No Way Home, in the fact that, he makes a wish with Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange makes everybody forget who he is. But in my counterpoint to him is that Spider-Man lost somebody significant to him in Aunt May in No Way Home. Marissa Tomei's character dies. The Green Goblin, ends up killing her. And so if Mephisto were to approach Tom Holland's Peter Parker and offer him the opportunity to bring back his aunt, his last remaining family member, would he take that deal? I found that to be really interesting, because you see at the end of Ironheart that Riri takes a deal in order to bring back a loved one. And, this notion of calling Spider-Man 4 Brand New Day, to me, is really, really interesting when you bring Mephisto onto the board. It also gives the MCU a new villain to play with, right? Like, Kang is off the board, unless they get around to eventually recasting, which I think that they should do. I think recasting Kang is the right idea. It's another big time villain that people can start to follow and who can make a lot of problems for some of these teams going forward. Obviously you have Doom, we've been through some of the other significant ones in terms of Thanos and Ultron and Loki, and they keep bringing Loki back, and Loki's still a significant part. I've heard that like maybe a potential Fantastic Four sequel could use a villain like Annihilus, which would be great. But having Mephisto around, I just think makes it really, really creative for the MCU going forward. It can make things really difficult for some of our biggest heroes. So I don't think that that's a one and done. I don't think that that's a character that we're introducing into the world just for the finale of a Disney Plus TV show. But however, I will still listen to you guys when you tell me that, there's a laundry list of things that have been introduced and teased in the MCU moving forward, such as the introduction and potential recruitment of the Young Avengers, Harry Styles, Blade, poor Mahershala Ali as Blade. Yeah, I mean, the list goes on and on. Tell me you don't want to see Charlie Cox's Daredevil confronting Sacha Baron Cohen's Mephisto, because I want that. I want the devil of Hell's Kitchen to meet the actual devil in a street level story that comes after a Daredevil Born Again season 2. Oh, that's another TV show that Marvel has coming. At least they have Daredevil Born Again season 2. That should keep people fairly engaged, but still, it's the movie side that I'm worried about. It was starting to fall into the Star Wars category of just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for another Star Wars film to come, and then years and years go by, and we're not quite sure what's going on. Comic-Con is going to be taking place later on this month, and Marvel Studios, for everything that we know right now, is sitting it out, or at least not going there to make a big announcement about what their slate is going to be. And so really beyond Avengers Doomsday, Avengers Secret Wars, and then a few rumored projects, things like a Thor 5, I would assume the new Avengers might potentially get a film, or the Young Avengers might get a film, and I think Spider-Man's going to be the start of a trilogy. Fantastic Four is probably going to get a sequel, but all these things are like not confirmed and just theoretical. Other characters like Shang-Chi was due to get a sequel. Nothing that we know of is happening for it. Black Panther 3 is in the works, but Ryan Coogler will only say while he's out promoting Ironheart that he's quote unquote working on it. So, again, this stays theoretically. It just goes to show that like we're not 100% sure what's next. And so I'm going to be following along closely to see what's going on. But for the time being, all of our attention shifts to Superman. Friday, July 11th, Superman returns to theaters for the first time as a part of a new and growing universe, the DCU. And hopefully you guys have your tickets to go see it. Hopefully you're checking it out. I'm going for my second viewing Tuesday. I got tickets to go see the Amazon Prime early screening of it. And so bringing the family. I'm excited to see it for a second time and reassess my reaction to it, which I can't talk about. But like I said, maybe by the time you guys got a chance to listen to this, you will know how I feel. My tweet is due to go live at midnight tonight. It is Monday. It is 4:37. Follow me on social media. I have down below Sean O'Connell 33, Sean _O'Connell 33 on X. And if you're finding this after the fact, let me know what you guys think about this. Let me know if you guys have fun with this. This is a brand new, I don't even know what most of this technology is. I'm on my own here and checking to see if this is something that I enjoy doing. But I kind of want a platform to be able to talk to you guys and talk about some of the comic book happenings that are going on in the world. Hopefully it'll live on my YouTube channel. I think every week we'll have something fun to talk about, at the very least with Superman and Fantastic Four. So I'll probably do it at least through those. And then maybe become a victim of my own talking, in the fact that there's going to be so little things to discuss. But Doomsday's filming, and there's going to be plenty of stuff coming from that. Spider-Man 4 will eventually go into production. I understand that they might be shooting in Glasgow, which is probably going to be a stand-in for New York City. So they can shoot some scenes of Tom Holland web slinging through the city and not just on a green screen due to COVID protocols. God, go back and watch some of those No Way Home scenes and see how they shot most of that stuff. It's New York City looks very, very small compared to how it looked in Far From Home. And if you want to follow along with me, subscribe to the YouTube page, follow me on social media. all the different places that you follow me. Follow CBR and CBR Presents. That's where a lot of my junket stuff will land, and my regular features on a regular basis. And in the meantime, thank you very much for sticking around. I appreciate you guys. Hopefully we'll be back with something soon. And I can't wait to hear what you guys thought about Superman. We're going to do another one of these streams when Superman drops, and you guys can come to me with your reviews. And who knows, maybe I'll have some guests. Maybe I'll try to find some guests who can join me for a live stream coming up. I know a few people in the industry. Maybe they'll join me. Some close friends. Who knows? I'll talk to you guys soon.